Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlan, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. He was the #1 U.S. stock market timer in the January 2020 edition of Timer Digest. He's speaking to us from Arizona. Welcome back to the show, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Before we get going, do you still have that special offer for our listeners?
Sure do. Go to VRTrader.com. That's Victor Robert, VRTrader.com, one word. And when you select one of the various newsletters on the screen, and you get to the point where it asks you for a promo code, simply add 2020 half off. 2020 HALFOFF, and that will give you 50% off any of the orders that you place, and that is available at least over the next few weeks. So thank you. Please take advantage of it.
And Mark, for new listeners, what are some of the TV shows they might have seen you on?
Well, for years, it depends what the age of the audience is, but for years I was one of the elves on the PBS television program in the United States, Wall Street Week with Louis Rukeyser. And for 30 years, I was on another PBS program with the great anchor Paul Kangas as what they call a market monitor guest. So that's just two big examples, though I have been interviewed on CNBC, BNN, CNN, and numerous other individual state radio and TV stations over the years, and quoted in many financial publications. I've done the circuit, not as active as I used to be, but definitely out there.
Mark, do the stock markets look like they're continuing to put in a V bottom?
I don't think we can characterize VWM or any of these formations yet. It's still too early to tell. So let's put it this way: we're just monitoring the situation, and we'll monitor as it unfolds here. I don't like to fall into the trap of trying to call it a particular formation or not. History says that generally, when you make a low, as we have, there's a chance you could retest the low or even make a lower low. So, with that regard, that would not conform to the V formation, but it certainly is a possibility. So let's take it a day at a time. I would discount it, but I don't want to fall into the trap. I'm watching the short-term signals, and my gut feeling is that this market bottom or the bottoming process might take a little bit longer than we would like. So let's take it, like a week or a day at a time, and just see how it unfolds.
President Trump is planning to have most of the country back up and running as soon as possible. Are the stock markets predicting a solid recovery ahead?
I guess they are, since they're so exuberant. I don't want to play down the bullish scenario. There's so much money being pumped into the system. You got the Federal Reserve going crazy out there. We have the potential of the plunge protection team. So, the markets are acting very resilient, and maybe I should just back up a second. I mean, there's some stocks like, I believe Netflix and for sure Amazon and, I think Costco and some Johnson & Johnson, some big names out there into new all-time highs or at just about at all-time highs, despite the crash that we experienced into March 23rd. So there are some striking examples, particularly if we look at a name like Amazon, that have done extraordinarily well here and, sort of fulfill that V-bottom formation that you just referred to. So much money's out there looking to get in. anticipating the market's business opening up again. So doesn't mean the market can't shoot up here as it has and come down again at a later point, perhaps when reality strikes. But at the moment, definitely we're getting the markets acting optimistically, anticipating the economy opening up, and really how fast it really will, what the consequences of this shutdown have been. Only time will tell. But we're following the stock market and as traders, and we try to look at it day to day, week to week, and try to make a judgment. We did call the low on March 23rd, and I was ranked number one U.S. market timer last year, and I think I'm number 3 on the total list so far this year. So we're doing our best to stay on board with some of the short-term action. Listen, if you're a long-term investor, all of this comment is irrelevant because, when there's a bargain basement sale, as we just saw, whether we go back to one more low or not is irrelevant if you're looking out many years or you're investing for your kids. I mean, there's so much money floating out there. Best place for your money is equity, companies that are growing, particularly with new technologies and so forth. I'm not a big fan of the bond market. And over time, I think money flows into stocks. You can look at charts for the past 100 years, and you can see that despite a lot of setbacks, wars, and all other kinds of problems along the way. And even though this was a significant event, we all seem to come out of it in time. So you have to be a big picture bull. And I guess you got to look at shakeouts as buying opportunities, whether you trade them or you just nibble for the long term. That's a decision that I guess is best made. But if you're investing for your kids and you're looking out 10 or 20 years, even if for your own retirement, being in the market is not a bad idea.
Could the U.S. economy enjoy a big recovery while Canada suffers without a significant recovery?
I'm not an economist, Jim. I'm a market analyst and technician. I would think that if the U.S. is recovering, Canada will also recover because of the need for natural resources. Copper, for example, and silver and gold are all part of the growth process as well, and the timber and oil and so forth. So I would think they would participate. Now, whether the dollar, the Canadian dollar, will perform well or not, that's another issue. The U.S. dollar had been strong, and the Canadian dollar has been weak. It doesn't mean business can't be good. Just the currency differential may still be there, and I think that was one of your other questions regarding the currencies.
President Trump is saying the stock market is likely to go higher than before. On the other hand, some people are predicting a depression. Your thoughts?
I can't predict recession, depressions. Again, that's an economic question. I'm looking at the market. I'm of the view that markets will go to all-time highs again, whether it'll happen by the end of this year or after 2021, 2022. Some people are suggesting, and just what you read is that it'll take us time to come out of this, that we may have an initial surge of optimism, stock prices, and so forth, and then reality will set in, and then we may be in a recession period for several months, carrying into next year or a little beyond that before we eventually turn. That's all possible. But again, we're following the markets, and if there's some swings, we'll try to catch them along the way. But I don't think we're going into any depression, and certainly a recession sounds plausible since so many people are out of work, and it's going to take time for everybody to get back on their feet. So more in the recession camp, I suppose, but the stock market looks beyond that. It looks into the future, as it already has started to. So let's take it a day at a time. If the market starts signaling that it's headed back down again, we should get some clear signals and act accordingly. But I think the economies will eventually recover.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after the break.
Cypress Development Corp is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cyprusdevelopmentcorp.com.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Mark, is there a deep state New World Order that's trying to keep economies shut down?
You know, there's an expression, if you talk about conspiracy, people start thinking, well, you're a little bit of a nutcase. I think the term conspiracy theory is a label that was conceived to derail the truth. In other words, if there is some truth out there, using the phrase or expression conspiracy theory automatically disqualifies you and puts you into a defensive mode. There's no question there's some truth out there beyond all this, and there was this event, we've discussed this before, I don't believe it was any accident, whether it was the Chinese trying to take retaliatory action against the U.S. for putting restrictions on their economy, whether it was the proponents of a new world order trying to throw the U.S. and the world into some type of recession or depression, which would strengthen their case for socialism and a new world order. Whether there was some other possibilities out there, plans of action. We talked about this last week, the Gates Foundation wanting to vaccinate everybody, and it was up to them. They put chips into everybody to monitor everything they're doing and saying. All these things are out there, and many are. It may be a combination of all that I've just mentioned. So, the virus event, in my humble opinion, was no accident, and it was planned on some certain level, or the idea was planned in a certain way that it came about more easily than it might otherwise have come about. So, the bottom line is yes, and. Unfortunately, there's forces out there that are trying to impose their will upon us in different ways. Of course, that's life anyway, but I think that was the case.
The coronavirus panic seems to be an excuse for some governments to push the idea of digital currencies so that they could track every transaction you make. Any thoughts on that?
Well, that was happening anyway, Jim. I mean, the government don't like cash. There's been a war on cash forever. Even after the 2008-2009 debacle, I mean, I went to the bank and took out cash. I mean, basically, I was afraid the banks would even survive at that time. A lot of people were doing the same thing. You go to the banks and you take out any amount of money. They make a notation of it, and potentially you can be investigated. They're fearful that cash somehow... Utilizing cash is an illegal activity, but it's also part of our freedom. Taking away part of your freedom when they don't allow you to use cash. So they've been trying to monitor us for years, and the advent of Bitcoin and all the cryptocurrencies, has led powers that be thinking, well, gee, maybe we should create our own version of this. Force people not to use cash anymore or make it illegal, and therefore we can track everybody's activities and so forth and so on. So there's been a sort of push behind the scenes for this, how fast it could actually happen or not. There has been talk or rumor about the digital currencies, and maybe ultimately that will happen where people just won't have use of cash. I'm not a proponent of that at all. Again, it's an infringement on our freedoms, but I would suggest, from what I'm hearing and reading, this has been in discussion for the longest time, and we'll only see whether it does get implemented. But it's definitely a movement and thought out there, and we'll just have to monitor things, and it wouldn't surprise me if it eventually does happen.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Aben Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF.
surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines. Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Mark, with all the economic destruction and chaos going on, are gold and silver expected to move significantly higher?
I believe so. You're accused of being a gold bug, but there's been a lot of things cooking out there. New potential Federal Reserve member is proponent of incorporating gold into our system again, and many of conservative investment analysts have become more accepting of having gold in your portfolio than before. As you know, recently there's been a shortage of gold in physical production being held up because of the virus, but a lot of demand out there for it. Big changes at the COMEX in Chicago, New York, regarding paper contracts and the ability or inability to deliver physical metal. So a lot of things are happening out there that will, I believe, drive gold higher. I don't have any big numbers for you. You know, for years and years, people were talking about 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, or even numbers higher than that. If we do back the U.S. dollar with gold, which is rumored out there, of course that hasn't happened since back in 1971 when Nixon took us off the gold standard. But if something like that happened, it would appear to me gold would have to be priced at significantly higher levels to somehow back the currency. I don't have that exact number, but I would guess it's like $30,000 or some huge number it would take to offset the debt that's out there. So time will tell, but over the near term, I would be looking for higher prices. My cyclical work is saying, you know, more strength later this year, perhaps in the third or fourth quarter than you're seeing right now, even though it is strong now. But we might run into some summer doldrums in the metals, and they may pull back here a little bit. But I don't think it's unreasonable to think gold will take out the big high over 1,800 and move toward 2,000 by the end of this year or sometime next year. I don't think that's very reasonable. And adjusted for inflation, and if it wasn't manipulated as much as it has been over the last several decades, gold would be already much higher than it is now anyway. It really doesn't. Even though it's done very well, it really hasn't reflected inflation everywhere. So it needs some catching up to do anyway, just as, you know, the pricing of the commodity is unreal to what it should be. Same applies to silver. We saw what happened to palladium, of course, as it went crazy based on the demand for the automobile industry, and that's really skyrocketed, which has been the best performing metal. But there's definitely a catch-up there. And I'm looking at platinum, too. Platinum is what used to be priced above gold, and it's still very cheap. At some point, platinum's going to come back, too. So I keep an eye on that one as well.
The U.S. dollar continues to look strong. Do you expect this strength to continue?
Well, we hit a little bit of a top short-term in the U.S. dollar. As I mentioned in a previous interview, we were just trading a little bit on the short side, but I'm more inclined to stick with a strong dollar scenario myself, based on my work. So at the moment, it had a bit of a correction, but I would have to say I'm more neutral on it here, but I'm not a bear at the moment. We did see a little shakeout, a little bit of a correction. We'll have to monitor that a little bit. But, you know, the U.S. is still the world leader in terms of the economy. It has the ability to print apparently infinite amounts of money, as we're now seeing, to bail out a lot of people and a lot of companies. So at the moment, I think what Europe is doing and the rest of the world has been doing, I think there's still a flow into dollars. So I think I would remain more positive than negative, at least for now.
What do you make of the OPEC Plus deal?
I really don't know what to make of it. It didn't affect the price of oil very much, cutting back about 10 million barrels a day. It didn't impress the market, apparently because, A, there wasn't enough of a cut, and B, the economies of the world are so slow that there's not much demand for oil anyway. So I think it'll take a much bigger cut and a turn in the economy here to really get the oil going, which might happen. So I'm more constructive on oil than most are. It is in a downtrend at the moment, but it is trying to bottom out. And some of our work suggested, I mentioned this previously, that we could see a real strong recovery in crude oil by the end of the year, much higher levels, and whether it could get to $50 or $60 a barrel right away. Ultimately, I see it going a lot higher than that, but it'll take some time. But I would envision by the end of the year, even though it's weak now, we've had a big shakeout, we probably see some type of, recovery underway for both economic and, I guess, manipulative reasons in terms of controlling the flow of oil and perhaps even the involvement of the U.S. government, because obviously a lot of U.S. and Canadian, for that matter, businesses are dependent on a higher oil price. So I think some type of financial manipulation is going to continue to occur, and this 10 million barrel cut is just the tip of the iceberg. There's too much money at stake letting these oil companies, not survive and put the Western Hemisphere at risk of depending on Russian or Saudi oil. So I think there's going to be a big push to get that price up again. So I'm more of a bull down here. We were trading it a little bit on the long side. Maybe a week ago we took a trade, and then it's fell back again. We're waiting for another technical signal, but I do think a buy signal is forthcoming pretty soon.
Is the uranium market starting to wake up?
Yes, I mentioned that previously as well. There's some ways you can play this. You got stocks like Cameco, CCJ, which has been doing well, been moving up already, anticipating a strong uranium market. There's an ETF out there, ticker symbol URA in the U.S., that's also been moving higher. Both of these stocks are back to the levels they were at the end of last year, or just about back to their levels, so they completely recovered any sell-off that we saw. So they're almost back into bull market status. So there's definitely buyers in uranium. Whether it's because something's going to be happening with the nuclear reactor program, which has been on hold in the, so to speak, in the U.S., or whether we're going to be militarizing more with regard to nuclear weapons, or who can say whether it's because of the new U.S. space program, or whether it's for domestic reasons. We'll find out. But there has been some push toward that. I would suspect it's more for military reasons than not, and I would be positive on uranium.
President Trump appears to have a plan to restart the American economy. Does the Canadian government have a plan?
I hope they do. I don't know, details of it. We know what the U.S. plans pretty much is: get everybody back to work as soon as possible, pump as much money into the system as you can, make loans that are non-recourse to small businesses. Of course, apparently some of the news that came out today, we run out of some funds for small business loans, so the U.S. Congress is going to have to appropriate more money to save small businesses. We'll see if that happens. The Democrats have been talking about approving $2,000 a month per person as an income until the economy turns around. Whether that'll get approved or not, I don't know. But I guess if you throw enough money out there into enough hands, things could start turning. So that would be more of the U.S. plan. I don't know what Trudeau is planning in Canada on that end, but I would suspect it's somewhat similar.
What could Canada do to have a big recovery?
Well, get that oil price up for one. That would be a big plus if they could somehow, impose their thoughts on Russia and Saudi Arabia about reducing the production of oil over there. That would be a big plus, because oil is such a big part of the Canadian business. Of course, gold and lust against silver have moved up, so that helps one sector of the economy. But I think it's the same thing as getting people back to work and perhaps providing some economic stimulus packages similar to what's being offered in the U.S. So that would probably be the best program. There's too much fear that getting people to work too soon is not the best strategy. I'm really not of that view. I think take precautions. There's always viruses and sicknesses out there, and if everybody has to wear a mask for a while or whatever, I suppose that's something that wear some gloves or something, I suppose, so fears calm down. But we all got back to work, and I think whether Canada is reacting more severely than parts of the U.S., that I'm sort of hearing. But we have to sort of get over this fear and know there's ways of handling it outside of the vaccination solution, which many people are apparently waiting and hoping for, thinking that once we have a vaccine, that would be the ultimate solution. I may be wrong about this. I don't think it is, but assuming the vaccination people are correct, that's probably several months away. I guess if everybody gets vaccinated, everybody will feel better about going out and about doing their business.
What do you expect will happen with real estate once the Canadian and U.S. economies get up and going again?
I think it would take off. I think a lot of people are waiting to buy and sell. I hear in the realtors that I talk to, pretty much, many of them are still busy, but a lot of customers are out there sort of waiting to see what happens. And if there's a resolution, it's like anything else. People are waiting to see what happens, and they want to pull the trigger, I suppose, once they feel more comfortable. But it's funny because real estate and stocks and investments all tend to sort of track together over time. And the fact the stock market has been moving up, and there has been some activity in real estate, I wonder if it's not already happening and we're not getting all the reports of it. Just like anticipating an economic recovery is driving stock prices higher a lot faster than people had thought. You would think that activity in the real estate world would also mirror that. So, but just this is a side comment. Just talking to some realtors that I've been reaching out to, I get the sense that many of their clients are sort of on a holding pattern, waiting to see how things resolve. But ultimately, it will be for the positive. So I'd be positive on real estate.
Mark, how can people get more information about your newsletters?
Very simple. Go to VR Trader, Victor Robert, VR, which actually stands for Volume Reversal, which is my technical tool, but VRTrader.com. And again, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we do have that 2020 half off offer for 50% off on subscriptions. And I really appreciate you having me on the show again this week, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. He was speaking to us from Arizona. If you have any questions for Mark or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.